The whys and the why now. Also, the bride and the endless stream of suitors going round the mountain. Who has a bigger mountain to climb? Appoint now or else. Court judges the president on judges' appointment. Who will blink first? On Yvonne's take, a letter to the president. On the kicker, revising the history of the nation. A call back to the truth. Kashuri pulls no punches about the small matter of those 6 judges. While on the angle tonight, the president and CBC, the tough lessons at last. But who's learning? The memo is that Jamila is away on assignment, and our sign language gangster is Yula Nzale.
And by the authority vested in me as president, I hereby order and direct that the nationwide dusk to dawn curfew that has been in effect from the 27th of March 2020 be and is hereby vacated with immediate effect.
All right, so that's the directive, order and direct. I will ask Linus what that means, but that was from Kirinyaga, that Wanguru Stadium, during the Mashujaa Day speech where the president lifted that curfew that has been in place, I think for the last 7 months, at least the latest one. So we will get to that curfew in a moment, but first something interesting came from the courts today. Francis, the court basically telling the president that, you know, his time of appointing those judges is running out. He has 2 weeks now to appoint them, or in the words of the judge, they will be deemed to have been duly appointed, and therefore the Chief Justice can go ahead and preside over their swearing in, and then they can report to work.
Very untidy, if I may call it. Why? Because on one hand, the president had 41 names back in about 3 years ago, almost 4 years, to appoint. He decided to appoint 34, left 6, 1 passed on awaiting appointment. Now the question is, will the president heed to those instructions or that directive? And what does it mean? And is there a period within which the president can appoint? Or will he say, there is no express provision, and so he can take all the time that he wants? Number 2, what if he doesn't within those 14 days? Who will swear in those judges? Will the president be present, or is it the Chief Justice who will preside over that function? You see, what I'm calling untidiness is that scenario where people are asking, so what should happen? Because in the normal order of things, we know how judges have been appointed, how they have been sworn in, how they have taken office. But now it looks like this will be a different route if the 14-day directive was to be followed. Looks very untidy. And what becomes of those judges and once they take office? Will we say these are judges who are appointed in this way, vis-a-vis other judges who are functioning, who are appointed in another way? I think there ought to be a standard way of doing things so that we know once judges have been recommended for appointment by the Judicial Service Commission, this is the procedure that they follow. Not a scenario where there's a, you choose what to do, what not to do. The judges decide, appoint within 14 days. Failure 2, they will be deemed to have been appointed. Very ugly scenario, if I may call it.
One would have said that if it was the time of David Maraga and there was an order like this, it was almost a given what would happen. I mean, because he had complained a lot about this, he had raised it publicly, and he seemed to have got to a point where he really just wanted things to happen. And we have Martha Koome, who appears to have taken a different sort of approach. I remember during the interviews, she said that she would pick up the call, said how she was a good negotiator and all of that. And yes, I mean, after she was appointed, after she became CJ, we saw in quick succession, actually, the 34 took their oath of office. And this, without a doubt, would then put her in an interesting place where she has to decide whether to go with what the court is saying and deal with whatever the president might think, or not go with the courts, and then people can say, okay, what do you want? There's an order from your very court saying that these people should take oath of office. damned if you do, damned if you don't, in many respects.
That's right, and all eyes now on the CJ in her capacity as head of the entire judiciary, and also of the Judicial Service Commission, that is the body that is responsible for this. In several interviews, including the one I did with her, a couple of weeks ago, she did mention the word functus officio that has again been used in this one, which was to say then that the Judicial Service Commission had done its duty and had recommended those that it did for appointment, and that after that their role ceased and they had no role in the matter. Once again today, the three judges in court talked about the president being functus officio should he not appoint these judges within the next 14 days. Now, if you take a look at what this means, functus officio means or refers to an officer or agency whose mandate has expired due to either the arrival of an expiry date or that agency having accomplished the purpose for which it was created. In other words, once you've served your purpose, your role ceases there. So now we have the ping pong. When she said that the JSC was functus officio in their role, now it is that, the president's role is functus officio if he doesn't do this within 14 days. And so we now start to see what will the CJ do when officers of her own judiciary have ruled one way. Does she then abide by that ruling made by judges over whom she presides as the head of the judiciary? Or does she lean towards the judiciary, to the executive? One of the other things I found interesting from what the judges said is they talked about the Attorney General violating the Constitution, acting in conflict of interest. You will remember that press statement that he made where he said the president will not abdicate his role, and all of these allegations adverse against the judges, and so saying that it was in conflict because he had actually participated in the JSC fully when they recommended the judges for appointment. And so this goes on. Also, we have never really been told these allegations against the judges. So here we are still hanging with this over their heads, even with this ruling that's coming in now. So what happens? Now eyes are on CJ Martha Koome, and I think this will be a test for her, I think right after her appointment, which is...
Linus, a big test, you'd agree?
I think in the ruling that was made by the court today, the biggest survivor of the night should be the Attorney General Kihara Kariuki, because there was a specific petition, a specific request by the Petitioner Katiba Institute that the Attorney General be declared unfit to continue holding the office of Attorney General. And the argument was quite interesting because Katiba Institute was saying, here is an Attorney General who actually sat through the JSC interviews. He was a panelist, meaning, and he was representing the president and the executive, meaning he should have known what is not known by everyone else except the president and probably the Attorney General about these judges that have been left out. And then he participated in the interviews and participated in the recommendation of all these judges to the president for appointment. Then he switches sides, again goes and becomes the president's biggest defender and saying the president will not abdicate his role and all that. And the judges today, the three-bench judge, basically declined that request to declare Attorney General Kihara Kariuki incompetent or unfit to hold that office. But of course there will be questions, even in the court of public opinion, on how Kihara Kariuki has really executed his position in as far as this issue of appointment of judges is concerned. Because it's looking like a one-way street in terms of the optics. It is ugly for President Uhuru Kenyatta. And this is because of what it looks like. It looks like a violation of what the Constitution instructs. The Constitution doesn't invite the president to give opinions about the appointees. Once the list reaches him, he should do the ceremonial duty of appointing and standing there when they are being sworn in. And you can see with the pictures of the judges that was sworn in, the president doesn't actually perform the ceremony. It's performed by
the chief registrar. Actually, it's the chief registrar.
Chief registrar, yes, in the presence of
the CJ
the president. Now, this is just ceremony. This is tradition. These are customs to project civility, to project harmony of the institutions, and also respect of the authority of the president, who heads the organ called the executive. So I don't know how long this will continue, because every other voice, I have not seen voices other than that of Kihara Kariuki saying don't appoint. Everyone else, including former Chief Justice Willy Mutunga, who told the president to avoid the temptation of the pettiness of exercising power in this by just doing the right thing. Because essentially what is being seen here is a situation where the president is not seen to be respecting the Constitution as it is written.
And actually one would think that if the president had appointed these people and he had whatever issues he had, by now tribunals would have been set up and probably those guys would be out of office. I mean, if they had real tangible issues around their integrity or whatever it concerned, I mean, about the conduct of their own conduct and how they conduct their business in the courts. And so it is baffling that this 2-3 years later, the standoff is still there. There are all these mysterious allegations against them, which in many ways tends to be unfair, because people look at you and say, what is this thing that's so bad about this person that the president can't imagine them being in office? And yet the irony of it is that
they're in office.
They're in office.
Only that they're in different offices. Like, I mean, it's
but offices in the same judiciary, Joe,
which requires the same degree of probity and
I
uprightness.
think, regardless of what the High Court said today, that cloud of allegations still hangs over their head, because we've not really been told what those allegations are and a chance for it to be cleared up one way or the other. The other thing I wanted to add on to what Alina said regarding the AG and what the court said about that, it's also another indictment on the Office of the Attorney General, considering the string of defeats that the executive has suffered at the courts over the last couple of weeks, everything from Huduma number to quite a number of cases. And so once again, putting in spotlight, his advice or rather his role as chief legal advisor and chief advisor as well to the president. Is he giving the correct advice, or is he giving, or the wrong advice, or is he giving the right advice and it is not being, followed? So again, for me, that's what stood out with this one.
Yvonne, that we also lost the
Somali case, right? So yes, it's just a
locally. This step they're losing home and away.
Not only losing locally,
yes,
it's losing also internationally.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to the most unlikely of cases, really.
Absolutely.
And most unlikely is actually being.
Joe, I look at it this way. It is also important to say that there are issues with some of the judges. There could be corruption issues. There could be all manner of things that are being said about some of the judges. They're human beings like any other person. So it is, even if the president had any issue, or let's say information was brought to him from, let's say, NIS or any other security organ, that these 6 don't deserve to be appointed as judges of the Court of Appeal and the High Court for the 2. I would think maybe the most important thing to do at this point is to make public the specific allegations made against those 6 judges, so that now Kenyans can make a determination: do these people really deserve to be members of the judiciary? Otherwise, as long as Lina's the allegations of integrity are hanging out there, it doesn't help the 6 judges, it doesn't help the president, it doesn't help the Judicial Service Commission, it doesn't help those in search of justice. Because if you go to court today and you have a matter before any of those 6, and they rule against you, maybe you will go saying, no wonder they have not been appointed. Because you don't know exactly why they have not been appointed. So put the matter on the table, let us know exactly what are the reasons, and if they are the grounds are credible, then institute the process of removing them from their current positions, because they are judges.
But I mean, some people would argue that perhaps the reason why that hasn't happened is because it's the wrong time to do that. I mean, there was an initial period when these people were before the JSC, and people had all manner of opportunities to present petitions and all of these things. And actually that, even making public now, it would serve perhaps a political purpose, where you say, oh yeah, these people are corrupt and all that. But if you were to look at the letter, the spirit of the law as written, that time's passed. I mean, it is not after the JSC has done its nomination and announced that the president, those people actually, that is what the court is saying, that those people actually, they are deemed to have been appointed by dint of that nomination from the JSC. The presidential appointment, as it were, is more ceremonial. And therefore, that is, I think, why the courts would even go to this lengths of saying that really, in terms of meeting the requirements of the Constitution, the role that the president plays is so ceremonial that it's not a substantive role that, would veto whatever comes from the other processes.
But because he does have a role to play in the JSC, that's why he's represented by the Attorney General there. Yeah. And that would have been the moment at which...
Including those NIS...
And not just the AG, he has two other representatives.
There are also other nominees who represent the public and are appointed by the president.
And appointed by the president. So, in respect, to use that phrase, functus officio, wouldn't he be declared functus officio after the fact? Like, there was, a venue and an avenue for him to speak out and raise all of those issues. But when that moment passes, surely we can't keep doing the back and forth.
Linus, you wanted to say something?
No, I just wanted to rehash the name so that we remember who it is.
Nice.
Is actually yet to be appointed. Now, the following judges were promoted to the Court of Appeal, and they're still serving currently as High Court judges. There is Joel Ngugi, there is George Odunga, Weldon Korir, and Agre Muchelule. They are supposed to be promoted to the Court of Appeal. And then there is Evans Makori and Judith Omange. Judith Omange was the registrar.
High Court registrar.
High Court registrar. Both Judith Omange and Evans Makori were supposed to proceed to the Labour Court. So those are the 6 judges.
And Makori is a chief magistrate currently.
In Mombasa.
Yeah,
is still in Mombasa?
He used to be in Mombasa.
Yeah. Okay. So, and it's good to put a name to the faces.
Wow. Okay, I think this is a good place to go to Kirinyaga and talk about the speech by the president. This being the final Madaraka Day speech of
Mashujaa.
Mashujaa.
Mashujaa, yes.
Wow.
Should we take a break then?
I think that's a good time to take a break so that I can figure out which is which of those holidays.
Still got one moment.
Well, at least you didn't say Huduma.
Called Udamaduni.
All right, let's take that break. We're back.